Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm not a professor, so I'm just trying to have with you a discussion. I'm not going to talk about my book. It's going to be too long, and probably it's going to be so interesting. I choose three items to talk with you. I'm going to talk about homeland, about immigration, and about gender ideology. And I'm going to try to demonstrate to you that these items are very well connected. And after this very short discussion, I will be open to you to any kind of question. So just think about that, because whatever you want to ask me, I will be ready to answer if I can. If I can't, I will tell you just simply, very simply, I cannot answer, or I'm not able to answer. And I'm very, very honored to be here, because you represent the future of Europe, the future of Belgium, the future of all of us. So it's very important what you are learning in these rooms and what you are learning during your formation period. So it's very, very important for me, and I hope it's going to be the same important for you. So talking about homeland, you know that I'm coming from a political group inside the European Parliament that is named the Patriots. So homeland in Italian is translated as patria, and it comes from Latin. It's the same root of patriot. Patria and patriots come from pater, which means father. And if you want to translate homeland in a more closer way to, the Latin roots, it would have been called Fatherland, the land of the fathers. And is it someone of you that can define what is the fatherland? So the fatherland, first of all, is a nation. So the next question would be, what is a nation? What are the three characteristics of a nation? So first of all, yeah, please.
Territory, inhabitants, and the government.
Very good. So the first characteristic is a geographical area. So a nation cannot exist if you don't have a geographical area, a territory, A geographical area that is very well defined by the borders. So we cannot have a nation without borders. And so this is the first thing that you should think about that. What is the dominant ideology in the last decades regarding borders? That borders do not exist. That we are all son of the planet, of the humanities. But borders do not exist. So it means that nations do not exist. Because if you don't have borders, you don't have a geographical area, and you cannot have nations. So just think about that. Hey, hi guys. The second characteristic is the population, the people, the inhabitants. And also the inhabitants are characterized by specific characteristics. They are not whatever inhabitants. Why are there inhabitants of this geographical area? Because they have the same history, the same religion, the same identity, the same principles and ideas. And think about what a part of our society is telling to us. That we don't have populations anymore. That we have multicultural society. It means that in the same geographical area, you have people believing in different principles and ideas living in the same nations. So it erases the concept of populations, because we are not believing in the same principle, and we are not coming from the same history, from the same religion. And so if we don't have populations, we don't have a nation. Very simple. It's almost logical. And the third characteristic is the sovereignty. the governance. And what is a sovereignty? What is a governance? Is some people that is titulated to decide for the beneficial of that population in that territorial area. It's very important. If we don't have someone who decides for these people, they could be elected in a democratic system or in another system. It doesn't matter. But the scope of someone who is leading a nation is to be beneficial to the population. If not, they are not doing their jobs. Very simple. So when we talk about homeland in this way, we need to think that in the last decades, all those principles have been attacked. You know, regarding borders, we don't build fences, but we build bridges. About the identity of people, we don't have identity, we are in a multicultural society. About sovereignty, especially when we think what has been done in many parts of the world when it is matter of delegating the sovereignty of one nation to supranationals authority, like for example, the European Union. No, we are more and more delegating the authority of sovereign nations to a supranational authority that should decide for the others. And this is a kind of maneuver, I will use some military terms, to erase, to cancel, to delete the society as we have known so far. And this is not something happening randomly. This is something that is conceived by a big strategy that is aimed to do something new, something different. Just simply erasing what has been so far the society that has grown and has made Europe one of the most powerful continents in the world. And if we think about the instruments that are used to disrupt the society as we know, one of the instruments that has been used is, for example, mass immigration. And thinking about that, a lot of people are talking about immigration very simply, but immigration is not very simple. Immigration of 10 people is different from immigration of 10 millions of people. Immigration of talents and professionals are different from immigration of herds desperates that are not knowing, that they do not know anything. And immigrations of cultures that are compatible with our culture is different from immigration of culture that are not compatible with our cultures, that they are referring to principles and ideals that are totally different from what we believe in. And someone is asking, but who is managing, who has the interest to destroy our society as we have known so far, and to foster mass immigration in Europe and in the Occidental world? I think there are 4 entities that have this interest. First of all, there are state entities. So there are some states that believe that immigration in Europe is good for them, not for us, but for them. And I will mention one, for example, in my opinion, then we can discuss it. The United States. The democratic leadership of the United States. They have fostered the Arab Springs, for example, in 2011. I was in Libya in that moment, and I was seeing what was going on, because these Arab Springs would foster immigration, would foster disorder, and lots of immigrants would go from Africa and North Africa and the Middle East to Europe. But why? Because America have never wanted, United States of America has never wanted a strong Europe. They always have wanted a weak Europe. And the problem was to separate Europe from Asia, because if a very strong industrial and manufacturing continent as Europe would have linked with Asia, with Russia especially, who is a nation who has lots of resources in terms of gas, oil, and whatever, it would have become a very big competitors for the United States. Another actor are non-state actors. You know the theory of globalization. And this theory that has grown at the end of the 80s after the fall of the Berlin Wall, they intended the United States of America of the big winners of the Cold War, and Brzezinski and Wolfowitz theory was to not allow any other entity to become strong enough to be a competitor of the United States. So they promoted a kind of universal authority that would lead the world together with the United States. And this universal authority would have been composed by the big multinationals, the big financiers, United States, and would have led the world. So they are the ones that also want Europe to stay weak and at a very low level. That's why Soros, for example, was one of the best financiers of all the ONGs that were engaged in immigration. Another actor that is very supporting the immigration is, in my opinion, some political parties. And I'm referring to the left parties. You know, they went through a very big problem, a very big defeat. In 1989, when the Berlin Wall fell, they discovered that the ideology of communist Marxist was totally defeated. And they had no other possibility to continue their fight if not they would have changed the strategy. So as the Marxist ideology wanted to construct the new man, abolishing the private property, so the new left ideology want to destroy the old society to build another new society based on other principles. So that's why the leftist parties, wherever in Europe, they are trying to support and promote immigrations. I will tell you something that I live every day in the European Parliament. Whatever amendment, whatever proposal we do to try to mitigate or try to block or try to manage illegal immigration, it's always voted against by the center and left parties. So it seems that they see in the mass immigration something that is good for Europe, and it is not. And the fourth actor, and it is quite logical, are some religious entities. So you know very well that in the Quran, it's written that Rome will be conquered by Islam, and so you have the Islamist countries that are supporting the immigration because they see in this immigration something that is going to, at the end, disrupt the Catholic and Christian entities that are in Europe. And if you think about what is that linked us in Europe, because we are very different in Europe. We are not like in the United States of America, a 300 years old country made of immigrants. We are a different country with different history, with different people, with different ethnies. But there is something that links us from North Cape to Malta. Religion. We are all Christians. Think about that. And if you remember, when we tried to write the constitution of the European Union, and we tried to put inside the constitution the Christian origin of Europe, of all the peoples of Europe, it was not accepted. Because they didn't want to recognize that the only link that we have in all Europe is based on religion origins, which is something that cannot be denied. So everyone is free to believe in whatever they want, but from an historical and a cultural point of view, there is nothing more than religion that unified us in all the European countries. I am from Italy. If I think, Hungary or Finland, we have nothing that is, similar. The language is totally different. The history is totally different. The traditions are totally different. But we are all Christians. And if you think it's like that wherever you go in Europe. So if you put inside this society that is characterized by this very strong, or whatever you want to call it, link, masses of people that have another religion, you are going to disrupt the only link that unified us as Europeans. And in the moment we are talking in the last days, just think about that, about a European army that should fight the Russians, we don't realize that these European armies is not supported by any identity, because trying to cancel all the identity that we had as European, you have people that are not, linked by any identity. So you are going to fight against the Russian. Why? What is the reason that push you to risk your life in a European army fighting against the Russian when the Russians are not threatening your country? So it's very controversial. From one side, you try to erase the identity of the nations, and from the other side, you would like to have an army fighting for something that is not directly, threatening the specific nations. And as a soldier, I tell you that it would have been for me very difficult to motivate a soldier to fight if I don't have anything to leverage him. Why should he fight? Why should I die? Should he die? So just think about, the big problem we have in this society because of political, religious, and ethnical problems. In my book, one of the sentences that was very criticized in my book, and I was also denounced to the judicial system, I was acquitted anyway, because I was talking about, the ethnies, and I was talking about an Italian volleyball player. She's black. She is from origin from Nigeria. She is Italian. She was born in Italy. But I was saying, she is Italian, but she doesn't seem as an Italian because she is black, because she has Nigerian origin. It is not good, it's not bad, but that's life. And I was very criticized because they told me I was a racist. But there is nothing racist on saying that. It's just a reality. Racism is something else. It's believing that an ethnic group is superior or inferior just because of the genetics. This is racism. But it's not saying that a man is black or a man is white or a man is red or a man is yellow. This is racism. Absolutely not. But the unique way of thinking pushes you to think about that. That you cannot define a man as a black, a man as a white, a man as an African or European, because you are going to discriminate them. So the new way of thinking is just trying to erase the differences that characterized us. And you think about the differences. I will tell you something. In my opinion, without differences, the world would be impossible. From a physical way and from a society reason. From a physical way, why do you think these lights are on? Because there is a potential differences between plus and minus. If you don't have this difference, the light would be off. So if I take this and I leave it, it's going to fall because of difference of altitude. If you don't have difference, it's not going to fall. It's going to stay fixed. So if we had no differences in the physical world, we would be in a total immobility world. Nothing would move, nothing would live without differences. So if you try to erase the differences, you are trying to erase the life. And in a social world, if you erase differences, you erase the willingness of people to live and to progress. Because if you don't see differences, if you don't see a better world, a better way of living, a better way of point of reference, you are not incited to go forward. You are just simply staying. Why should I move? Why should I work? Why should I do something if you don't have differences? So erasing the differences, it means making the world immobile, totally immobile. That's why I think that erasing differences is something that we have been thought on in the last decades, but it's something that is going to erase our way of thinking and living. Erasing, we should enhance the differences, which has nothing to view to discriminate people. You discriminate people when you take out their rights, not when you enhance the differences. He is blonde, I am brown. He is from Italy, he's from Belgium. He comes from Africa, I come from the North Pole. These are the differences that are normal, and they are not bad and good. They are simply differences. And this is what characterizes our society. Very simple. And thinking, so now I'm trying to link this way of thinking to erasing differences to the gender ideology, which is part of this try to erasing differences. Gender ideology starts from the point that at a certain moment of my life, independently from the biology, I can decide whether I am a man or a woman, depending on my mood. So I'm just erasing differences between the sexes. I don't care about the biology, but I care about my brain. Whatever I think becomes reality. So the perception is more important than the reality. I am perceiving myself a woman. Who cares if I am 1 meter 90 centimeters tall, if I've got a beard, whatever? I am a woman. And whoever has to call me a woman. I need to go to the female toilets. And if I'm going to jail, I need to go to the women jail because I perceive myself as a woman. I'm telling you that because it's something that has happened in the reality and has caused many problems. And it starts from a total wrong assumption. It starts from the assumption that the nature was wrong in giving me a body. In respect of the body, I arbitrarily want myself to have. So I am more important than the nature, which is total illogic. And this is the same way of erasing the differences that we are using in many other fields. So all those strategies regarding the erasing, the fatherland, erasing whatever characterized our society, try to put immigrants inside our society to weakness the links amongst us, and erasing also the reality in the biology, which is something very, very, factual. We don't need many explanation. It's something that concurs to these disruptions of the concept of society that we have known so far. That's why, in my opinion, all these factors are linked, and are very, very, very linked to the strategy that I was talking to you at the beginning of my speech. So what we need to do? Well, in my opinion, we need to be very, very assertive in what we believe. We need to argument what we believe in, because in the last decades, we gave up. Many conservatives just gave up to arguments and to sustain, in a logical way, the fight. And to say, no, you're not true. Simply because I have A, B, C, D to tell you, and I can demonstrate you that it's not true. We are not going to a better world. Just see the indicators. No, we have a lot of people supporting the multicultural societies. Go and look what this multicultural society have started to grow and see what happened. Is it better than the single culture society, or is it worse? Look from a criminality point of view. Look at the United States. One of the multicultural society for definitions. A lot of criminality. And one of the major factor of killing and aggression for racist reasons. So it means that this multiculturality doesn't mean major integration, doesn't mean assimilation, but means more attrition inside the society. And we need to argumentate with factors, numbers, logics, and rationality. And we need to convince people. That's, I think, our reason. And why do you do so? We were talking about homeland, fatherland, and patriots. And I would ask you, who is a patriot? How could you define a patriot? There are a lot of ways of defining it. Does anybody want to try to define a patriot? Nobody? I don't have a definition. I just made my definition. Then I will tell you my definition. Okay, I will tell you my, please.
Someone who is proud of their country and their culture and their people.
Yeah, perfect. Very good definition. There is someone else? No? So my definition is someone who every morning gets up to make his country, his people, the better country and the better people in the world. And he works every day for it. So it's very similar to what you said. So because we are moved by this initiative, and we want a better world for everybody, I always say that I started my political life because I wanted something better for my daughters. And whoever of us, you are very young, so probably you think more about yourself than about your son or whatever you want to build in the future. But at my level, I always think about my daughters, the young people, or whatever I will leave to them. I want to leave them a better world. I want to leave them a better society. I want to leave them something to believe in. I want to leave them something that is better than what I had in my childhood. That's what I work. That's why I am a patriot. It doesn't mean that I'm going to steal something to anybody else. But I want the better for myself. And if everybody is reasoning at the same level, we are all together build a better world. So that's why I wanted to give you my observation and my thought about that. And I think I talk too much. And I will stop talking. I'm leaving you the floor, ready to answer to all your questions if I can. Thank you so much for the attention. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please.
As a general, I mean, the role of Europe in the world, the role of the United States, the role of immigration. What is your opinion, either good or bad, not pointing you in any way, on Israel?
Oh. Tough question. Starting from where? From 72 before Jesus Christ?
From 1948.
Okay, 1948. Well, the creation of the State of Israel. Okay? Do you want me to talk about that from a juridic point of view? Well, I will try to give you my idea. Okay, Israel was built up as a state in 1948. Palestine was a protectorate of Great Britain before, and Israel was built up in 48. All the Arab countries were against it. They didn't accept the Palestine state in 48, and they attacked Israel in 48, 56, 63, 56, 65, 73, and 82. The 5 Arabic-Israel wars, okay? And they lost always. So Israel was created, was attacked by everybody around him, and anyone who was attacking Israel lost. In 63, there was another agreement that suggested the creation of, 2 states in the same country with Palestine and whatever. And the Arab countries and Palestine did not accept the agreement. So after there was the 73 war, and they lost, and the 82 war, and they lost. And then the other wars against non-state actors, Intifada or whatever. So we cannot say that nowadays there is a Palestine state. As I was telling you before, a state is defined by 3 conditions. Borders, we don't have borders. Who can define the Palestine borders nowadays? The borders that were decided in 67. Yes, but after 67 there were 3 wars that changes the border, and the wars matter. So it's like Italy that would reclaim, the borders before the Second World War. It's totally different. So, Palestinian people, probably it is from an ethnic point of view. And then what is the sovereignty of Palestine? Hamas or the National Palestine Authority or whoever? So you don't have the characteristic of a state. I think that we need to promote the creation of a Palestinian state. But nowadays we don't have the possibility to define it. That's my opinion. So we want to, the wars are never good. We need to try to avoid the wars. And if we want the Palestinians and Israeli to live together, we need to try to, make the war not rentable, not profitable, and creating a state, 2 states where they can live together is part of a solution. But you know how long we have been talking about that? At least from 48, as we were mentioned about. And nobody succeeded in doing that. So, and what is now the arguments that many times we were talking about, between Israel and Hamas, the peace process, why they do not accept the peace process, why they do not accept a ceasefire and whatever. There is a big problem. When you are negotiating, especially during a war, you cannot negotiate with someone whose unique goal is to erase you. So when you see Hamas people or whoever singing Free Palestine from the river to the sea, it means that the state of Israel is not existing anymore. So you are negotiating with someone who is telling you sooner or later, I'm going to destroy you. That's a problem. So from the moment you're going to find a middle way where the two parts recognize the existence of each other, you can start negotiating. But unless you find this midway part, it's very, very difficult. I have never seen in the history treating or negotiating with someone whose the unique scope is to destroy you. But it's very, very tricky situation. It's a very complicated situation. We are not going to fix it in a few months or in a few years. It's something that we have to work on all together, but starting, in my opinion, with the idea that the two components, the two states, must live together. Probably not in the same area, because if not, they wouldn't be the different states, but they need to live close together. Did I answer your question? Yes. Okay. You know what happened in 72 before Jesus Christ? Masada. So it was during the Roman Empire, when the Romans, the legions came to Galilee, the Jews, they tried to fight the Romans, but they were not succeeding, so they gathered in a very big fortress that was almost untakeable. The name was Masada. And they refused to surrender. And the Romans were not gentlemen. So in 3 years, they took the fortress and they killed everybody. So that was one of the part of the history of Jewish people in the Palestine region since, the years before Jesus Christ. Okay? Please.
I have a question.
Sure.
You always define immigration as a bad phenomenon. Okay?
I always define what? Immigration.
Phenomenon as
Yeah.
a bad one. Okay?
Yeah.
That it's within our society,
Yeah.
our society. But why? As also your part, can
Sure.
never speak solidarize with Palestinian people, and like this, I think that here lies the biggest hypocrisy about also your track. Okay, like you can never solidarize with Palestinian people, and I don't think that you answered the question of that guy, because like in 1948 there was not Jewish people in Palestine who randomly was asking to have a state. It was a colonial project that brought a mass immigration phenomenon in a land that where there was already a native population. So why you don't speak you don't treat you don't handle the question as you should,
Mm-hmm.
as a migration phenomenon into a land that was already inhabited by their people, and they expelled the people from their homes, they killed them, they massacred them. Why you can solidarize with the people? I mean, like someone can disagree with you about your idea of society, the immigration. It's okay, but it's an historical fact that the Zionist movement was a colonial ideology. Okay, was an ideology that their aim was to display another entire population, and also before the first Arab war against Israel, half of the Palestinian population was already expelled from their homes before the war, before the declaration of war, because in the May of the 1948, the Arab army started to protect the Palestinian villages. And also when that war started, the main goal of Israel was to go on with its ethnic cleansing of Palestine. So my question is here.
Okay, two questions. Why I'm always talking about immigration as a bad phenomenon?
No.
And why I don't...
No. If you consider immigration as a bad phenomenon,
Yeah.
It's not...
Okay, you link the both.
Yeah, but the main question is the second
Yeah.
one. Why also your party
Sure.
doesn't talk about Israel and the Zionist movement clearly about its historical meaning, so
Yeah.
the colonial project?
Okay. So first of all, I describe a typical immigration as a bad phenomenon. If you were listening, I made the difference between, the immigration of the 10th and the immigration of the 10 millions. The immigration of talents and the immigration of, the heart desperates. And the immigration of the cultures that can be assimilated in our society and the cultures that cannot be assimilated. So it's something very different. Immigration can be a good factor, but depending of these characteristics. When we talk about mass immigration of not talented people and cultures that are not, which we cannot integrate in our culture, I see that as a bad phenomenon. And we see the results of what is happening in Europe and in many other countries of the world. And it is not true that I'm not solidarizing with Palestinian people. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about facts. I'm pragmatic. Immigration in history have always existed. If you talk about the United States of America, is a country that was born upon immigration. And we are not arguing that nowadays all the Americans should leave the United States to leave the Indians and the Native Americans, the territory that was owned by them before 1498.
Maybe like now the Indians, like it was right now that the Indians were like colonized by European immigrants, maybe like...
It's a question of power. I'm pragmatic, very pragmatic. Power. In war, the strong win, the weak lost, lose. Politics is also about ethics, but it takes in account powers. This is how we live in our world. Brazilians is a state made upon immigration. And the Brazilians are not living the Brazil because the native tribes of the Amazonic forest are reclaiming the territory that they were owning before. It's the same happened in Palestinian region.
No, but it's a colonial project going on also right now. It's not something that has ended up.
Well, it is something that is going on right now, especially because in whatever confrontation, they have lost wars. And they have lost confrontations.
It's a colonial project.
Project or not, you know, there were 5 Arab-Israeli wars, all have been lost by the Arabs and the Palestinians. There have been many non-statial wars and they have been lost. So this is a state of facts. I'm not, you know, it is not a problem of solidarity. It's a problem of fact. It exists.
It would be crazy thinking that in a colonial project, like no wars will come out about that colonial project. It's normal. If I create a Jewish state in a land that is not Jewish, like it's a sure thing that wars about neighbors and stuff like that.
It is something that has characterized history, as I told you. So it's not the first case in the history. It has always happened. So that's why I'm telling to everybody that we need to find a solution. But solution is not erasing Israeli state, because we are not finding any solution if we think that this is the solution. Very simple. If you see that from a military way, it's very simple. I know, but military and wars are part of our living, and as you can see every day. So we are talking about in 2 years about a war against Russia, and we have someone who tells us that we need to spend 800 billion euros for rearming in Europe, and we cannot say that wars are not linked with our society. Since the beginning of the human society, there have been wars. And they are not going to finish. I can bet. How much do you want to bet? I come from this, you know, environment. And this is how the world is progressing. This is how it has progressed in the last 8,000 years. From a theoretical point of view, I agree with you. We would live in a beautiful world without wars and without attrition and without competitions, but it doesn't exist. Simple. So we have to cope with the problems that we have nowadays, and they are real problems. Sure.
So, like you say, point of your opinion, so is that Israel state, like his existence is legitimate, or
Absolutely. The existence of Israeli state is totally legitimate.
even though in
Even from an international law system is totally legitimate. Israel is part of United Nations since I don't remember when, but it has been recognized from, I don't remember the number of states, I think 160 states on 185. Probably we can Google it. I'm not
okay, no, but
updated, but
if we talk about like moral thinking, okay, moral level, and we could say that, is it correct to say that Israel state was created inside another nation? Like, I'm from Italy, no?
Yeah.
I can imagine, like, if some point I wake up and a new state is introduced in my state, okay?
Yeah. Well, at that time it was totally different. You know that at that time a lot of states were created from nothing. They were just drawn on the maps. It's very simple. You just see the borders between Iraq and Syria or Iraq and Iran. They are, straightforward lines, because at that time it was most of all a British protectorate, and when the states were designed, they were designed on a map. So it's the way of, the states were created. And you think about Iraq. Iraq has three entities inside these borders. They have the Shia in the south, the Sunni in the center, and the Kurds in the north, and nothing is linked between them. It's just a state that was designed by purpose. And the same Palestine was not existing. It was a protectorate of Great Britain. It was part of the Ottoman Empire before. So we cannot argue that it was a state created inside the state.
Go there and expel the people. You can just go there.
It was a progressive colonization of regions. Yes, we can say that.
People lost their homes in the 1980s.
If you want me to say that, I will tell you, yes, it was a progressive colonization of one area. Yes,
But
yes.
also, like the fact that Europe, UK, USA, France, they all decided to build a new state, the state of Israel, inside the Middle East, like in the heart of Middle East. Is that something that you would say was already projected from the west part to maybe have a control?
No, there were,
of the Middle East?
if I remember well, there were another option in Rwanda, but it was dismissed, if I remember well. So there were several options in Uganda and Rwanda. Yes, several options. And then it was made in the Middle East. But we cannot go, in my opinion, we cannot go 85 years ago to fix this problem. We need to think about nowadays. Yeah, I mean, so you cannot go to the Indians in America to fix the problem of the Indian reserves. We need to think about nowadays. So what would you do tomorrow? Your idea is to go in Israel and saying, no, Israel doesn't exist anymore. Go away, now we have Palestinian state. Would it be a solution? I mean, would it be a solution? Simple. No, it's not an option. It is not an option. In my opinion, it's not an option. You know why? Because it's not feasible. Feasible. It's not feasible. Simply. So an option, when you decide a strategy in the military, the first characteristic is the feasibility. Can you do it? No. So keep it away. So do you think that erasing the state of Israel is feasible? In my opinion, it's not feasible. So it's not an option. Very pragmatically. I am not pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. I am pragmatic.
Yes, please. Mr. Vannaci. First and foremost, thank you for the lecture until now.
It's not a lecture, it's just a discussion. I'm not a professor.
The last decade and a half, we've seen a resurgence of the right in Italy in general. But at the same time, we've seen that, for example, the policies of Mr. Salvini have been thwarted by mainly judges and sometimes even completely blocked. And now we've seen another attempt on the right by Mrs. Meloni, which is largely ineffective. Where do you see the chances for the Italian right, and for Lega, of course, in the future to influence the policy and to get Italy back on the rails?
Continuing pushing. So never give up. Never ever give up. So we know that the right politics in Italy have been countered, especially by very strong powers. We know what Salvini went through, especially from a judiciary point of view, doing his duty of Minister of Interiors. And we know whatever is opposing this policy in Italy, but we cannot give up. We just need to push. We just need to change the legislation. We also have, if needed, to change the constitution. Why not? If we have the majority. This is how the democracy works. We need to continue, and especially if you have the support of the people, because democracy is people's sovereignty. So we need to attract the votes of the people. We need to be very straightforward with them, not promising something that is not feasible, as I was telling, and trying to push in that direction. I am optimistic, sincerely speaking. I am optimistic because we went to the regional elections just 2 weeks ago, and the situation in Italy has not changed. We have 20 regions, 13 or 14 of them are led by right wings, and only 5 by the PD, the left part, and 2 by the 5 stars, it's left part parties. So far, the right is the majority in Italy. So I hope that for the political election of 27, we are not changing this repartition of votes. But I am strongly believing that we can even get better. And we need to be very pragmatic. In my opinion, the first needs of the Italian population right now are security. We are not living in a safe place in Italy. Migration, which is very strictly linked to security. 50% of the criminal acts in Italy are conducted by the 9% of the strangers' population. This is numbers. These are numbers. These are numbers. I'm so sorry. We can argue about everything, not about numbers.
I think the problem with these numbers is that they do them wrong, because
Who?
The police, they suspect a larger part of the immigrant population than they do normal Italians.
No, that's wrong. So these numbers are based on the effective criminal acts. So these are objective numbers. I will give you another number. 34% of the prisons society is made of the 9% of foreign people. So
This is the same problem with the number.
no, this is not a problem. So the people that are in jail, they are there because they have committed a crime, not because they are suspected to have committed a crime.
No, but you first need to suspect someone to commit a crime to then convict them. So if you
No. If you suspect someone, if you suspect someone, you go through the investigations, and then at the end of the investigations, you are sure that they have committed a crime and you condemn them. That's different. But even in the first number I gave you, these are on criminal acts effectively happened, not just in the investigation that came on the crimes. So this is the reality. But these are very comparable with the numbers that you can find in France or in Germany or perhaps in Belgium. I'm not sure that they are equal, but they are very similar. And it is not only, this is not only the problem of criminality. I will tell you something. Mass immigration undermines the social solidarity, which is something very bad in a society. Nobody of us like to pay taxes. Sincerely speaking, I don't like. I would prefer not to pay taxes and to keep my money for me and for my family. But why do I pay taxes? Why do we all pay taxes? There is a passage of the Bible, I'm not sure I'm able to tell you in English. Ama il prossimo tuo come te stesso. Love your neighbor as yourself, okay? But who are my neighbors? My neighbors are my family, my daughters, my wife, my parents, my friends, the people I know. But my neighbor is also an Italian guy living in Sicily, because I share with him the same principle, the same ideals. And my neighbor could be also that guy. I don't know him. I don't know him. But very probably, his great father fought the First World War with my great father to build up a better Europe. So I consider him one of my neighbors. The love links are weaker than for my daughters, my father, my mother, my friends. But in any way, there is a link. But if instead of that guy, I would see a Nigerian guy, I would have any link with him. Love your neighbors as yourself. But there are different kinds of neighbors. And the proximity is different. So I am happy to pay taxes for my daughters, for my wife, for my friends, for the guys I know, but even for that guy whose great father fought the First World War with my great father. But I'm not happy to pay taxes for a Nigerian guy because he did nothing for us. That's why the social solidarity is totally disrupted by the mass immigration. Because nobody wants to pay taxes for these guys that are coming to us just to profit and to take advantage of our social welfare. Thank you, guys. You already asked a question. We leave to the lady.
May I just ask, why do you focus so much on national identity? Because I think it's a really abstract concept, and I don't see how you can make this concrete, especially I'm from Italy, and I have lived in 3 different regions. Now I'm living in Germania, and I can assure you people from Germania are very different from people from Sicily, maybe.
Okay.
So we all live in the same nation, but we do not share at all the same identity. So why do you see other people coming to Italy as presenting this identity when this identity does not exist?
Okay, that's your opinion, that the identity does not exist. As I told before, the identity of a population is made by history, soil, roots, traditions, language, religion, food, and many other matters that link us together. And you ask me why I insist on the national identity. Because I fought for it all my life. So I put my life in danger for my nations. And if you are Italian, you should do the same, because as you know, the Article 51 of the Constitution tells that defense of the country is a holy duty of each citizen. And I'm pretty sure that also in the Belgian constitution there is something like that, and also in the French constitution, and also in the British constitutions. So we all recognize ourselves as a population and not just a people of one nation. If you, and I grew up in France, for example. So I moved to France when I was 7, and I went back to Italy when I was 17. So it's not a matter of where a people live. It's a matter of what your family transmit to you. And that's also why the citizenship in almost all the countries of the world is iure sanguinis, is transmitted by the parents. You have ius soli, so the citizenship transmitted by the location where you was born, only on those countries based on immigration. You have ius soli in the United States, in Brazil, in Argentina. But in 95% of the countries of the world, you have ius sanguinis because you take your citizenship, you take your identity of people from your parents. And that's why I believe that we Italians are different from the Belgians. We are different from the French. We are not better or worse. We are simply different. And we are all proud of our identity. This is what made all our societies together better. I worked for 37 years in a special forces environment. I'll tell you a story which is very, very typical. Special forces are used to operate in a very small units. So you cannot choose people. Well, you choose them, you select them. But once you are in operations, you cannot just substitute them. And you need to take the talents of everyone and make them the better you can. So because we are different as population, we can be a bunch of talented identity put together, and the result is not just the sum of these talents, it's the products, or even more. So that is what makes us better. Not the uniformation, but the diversity. And we should all be proud of this diversity. The diversity is not making conflicts. As I told you earlier, look at the multicultural society. Those are the society where you have the more racist criminalities and problems and aggressions. It's a question of statistics. But think about that. I don't want to be right. Just think about that.
But what I was arguing about is that nowadays I don't think we can really define an identity because we as Europeans as well took a lot from other countries. Like when you go outside to eat, you can go and eat something Greek, something Chinese, sushi.
Sure. You know what I wrote in my book? I wrote exactly that. So when I was criticized because of my words on this Blackfoot volleyball player, I wrote that identity is very, very solid in any way. In Italy, we have lots of Chinese restaurants, lots, everywhere. But if you ask to one of our Belgian guys here, Italian cuisine, they would never tell you that it's made of Chinese restaurants. Even if we have lots of Chinese restaurants in Italy.
Yeah.
So one is identity. The other one is multiplicity of factors. We live in a globalized world. We have imported many things, but these are not or should not change dramatically our identity. That remains the same.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can say the same for Italy. For example, do you know that if you live in Etruria, there's like a dish called charsons, but it's not famous abroad because it's only famous like in that specific region.
Sure.
It's a part of their tradition, but it's not a part of like Lazio's tradition. So
Perfect. This is the bunch of talents that make us better. but it's always part of our identity. It's ours. It's not Chinese. It's not African.
It's all part of that region's identity because they don't have those, for example, in India.
But together make our Italian identity. Please. My father friends.
In the start of your lecture, you said that the Americans want a weaker Europe.
Yeah. The democratic leadership of the United States.
John Mearsheimer would say that Europe is only safe because of NATO, because of the protection that we have from NATO.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would like to ask you, what if NATO is not, what if the Americans are not involved anymore in NATO and pivot their attention to, for example, China or something other? What will happen in the conflict in Ukraine and with Russia and so on? Because Europe is still very diverse. It's not really, it doesn't really have a plan to tackle the war in Russia.
Yeah.
Or to stop it.
Yeah. So, Europe, since the end of the Second World War, has always been a kind of controlled area by the United States. After the Second World War, because of the threat of the Soviet Empire, NATO was here and the Americans were in Europe defending us because it was the unique military power that can oppose to the Soviet power. Okay? In '89, the Soviet Union fell and the United States had no more reasons to stay in Europe, to control Europe, because Europe was not threatened anymore. That's why we had the Wolfowitz and Brzezinski strategy to build up a kind of global war that would avoid any other power to surge and to be able to compete with the United States. And that's why after '89, all the democratic leadership of the United States tried and maneuvered to have a weak Europe, because they didn't want Europe to be able to become a competitor regards to the United States. Now we have Trump. Trump has dramatically changed the geopolitical world. And why? Because in my opinion, Trump has realized that the problem is not Europe anymore, that in any way is weak enough not to oppose to anyone, because nowadays we are irrelevant for any kind of problems. We are irrelevant in Middle East. We are irrelevant in the Ukrainian and Russian war. We are irrelevant in many other situations because the socialist strategies and policies made us irrelevant. So we cannot oppose to anything. We have not the power to oppose to anything. So the problem of Trump is not Europe anymore. The problem of Trump is China. And because the Biden administration started a war with Russia, conducted on the soil of Ukraine, but in my opinion is not a war between Ukraine and Russia, but it's a war between the United States and Russia conducted by proxy in Ukraine, okay? Now we have China and Russia together because Russia was pushed toward China with this war. Now we have a lot of support from China to Russia from an economical point of view, and we have Russia that is selling almost for nothing gas and oil to China and India. So from an economical point of view, China is much more competitive than whatever other state in the world. So the problem of Trump now is to divide China from Russia. And to divide China from Russia, he needs a peace between Russia and Ukraine. That's, in my opinion, what is happening. And what is the attitude of China? China doesn't want the peace. because with this war, China is keeping in control the United States, and it's destroying Europe through Russia. India doesn't want the peace, because India is receiving gas and oil for nothing from Russia and will receive it until the war goes on. The only ones who would try to reach the peace, whatever it costs, are the Europeans. And the Europeans are pledging for a war forever. That's what they are voting at the European Parliament. We are suiciding ourselves.
So how do you explain that? How do you explain the war language that Kaja Kallas, for example, is speaking in the European Parliament?
I cannot explain that. Have you ever seen my intervention in the European Parliament? You know what said Einstein? Einstein said, to be crazy, it's doing always the same things, expecting different results. And we are crazy, because in the last 3 years, we have been doing the same things, expecting different results. So this is Europe suiciding itself, trying to keep on, the war, trying to keep on this situation, and not realizing that Russian troops are little by little advancing. And the only way to stop the war and to reverse the conditions is for NATO and probably European Union to get in a direct war with Russia. But I hope it will never happen, because if it happens, it's going to be very, we are going to be very close to a nuclear war, and it's very risky. But if we don't change our strategy as a European Union, nothing is going to change. And it is not in our interest. Let's talk about energy. We pay energy more than any other industrialized places in the world. Why? Also because this war. Also because of the craziness of the Green Deal policies. But also because of this war. And we cannot be competitive if we pay the energy 3 times, 4 times more expensive than in China, than in India, than in the United States. It's impossible.
There's also some interest from the USA to keep the war going, because if the war is still going, then that means that Russians cannot export more gas into Europe, and we still are dependent on gas from the USA.
Well, from this point of view, I'm not agreeing. In my opinion, the United States of America are very interested on a peace agreement, because I remind you that, in my opinion, the problem is China. It's not Europe anymore, and it's not Russia anymore. The problem of the United States is China. So if they want to handle China, they need to have a peace treaty and a peace condition in Europe and in Russia. That's my opinion. That's it.
But so do you then think that, or believe that, Russia is or has been a better ally for Europe than America? Because it's, we need an ally, so
yeah.
It's
So
either the West or you have to look to
I strongly believe that especially in United States, there was a big fear that Europe and Russia would have linked together, composing a strong power. And what is pushing my beliefs, what are corroborating my beliefs, is that one of the first things that blew up during the Russia-Ukrainian war was the Nord Stream 2, and was exactly the flow of energy from Russia to Europe. As I told you at the beginning, the fact that a very big, industrial continent and very big manufacturing continent as Europe was linked to a huge barrel of energy, gas, petrol, and whatever, like Russia, would have made the Eurasia, continent very, very difficult to control, very, very difficult to compete with. So I'm pretty sure that at that time, the fear for the United States was this situation.
That would be reliable, that Russia is a reliable friend, that we can count on them when we need
Well,
them?
they were reliable. They have been reliable until 2022. We have took advantage of lots of very cheap energy coming from Russia until that time. Italy, until 2022, have made a lot of businesses with Russia. So it has been a reliable partner, at least. I have served in Moscow for almost 2 years as a defense attaché, and a lot of European countries had a lot of businesses going on in Russia. And that was one of the problems from the other side of the ocean. Please.
So you were talking in the beginning of your speech about the only thing that European countries have in common being Christianity. So I was wondering if you think that the civilization becoming less Christian is also a threat to the European Union, because if we lose our religion, that binds us together.
Is a threat of our identity. As I was telling you, no? I don't know, you feel Europeans? Yeah? Sincerely speaking, I don't feel European. I feel Italian. I mean, no, sincerely speaking. So, I am in Belgium. I feel okay. But for me, being in Belgium or being in New York is the same thing. I feel differently when I am in Italian. When I am in Italy, I feel Italian. I don't feel European. I don't see any link that link us as European peoples, countries, and nations. I've lived for 2 years in Romania, but I don't feel Romanian. I'm married with my wife, she is Romanian, but I don't feel Romanian. Even though we have 2 Latin languages, because Romanian comes from Latin, we have a lot of tradition, we share a lot of traditions, but we are different. I have been in Hungary. I don't feel Hungarian. So what links us as European more than whatever else? The religion. What is the same from Norway to Cyprus? And from Portugal to Ukraine? No, Ukraine is not, what? To Russia. Because if we consider the geographical limits, Russia is a European country. Okay? The religion is the only thing, in my opinion, that links us. You can believe in God. You can believe in whatever you want, but also from a cultural point of view, is something that links us. You can not believe in anything, but in Italy, every 2 streets, there is a church. And it's part of our culture. And if I go to Belgium, I find churches. And if I go to Norway, I find churches. And if I go to Ukraine, I find churches. It's something that links us, unifies us, more than whatever. Languages, are they unifying us? No. Traditions, are they the same in all Europe? No. The only thing that is almost the same is religion. True or not? That's just a consideration. I'm not very, very practicant. I'm not a religious thinking person. But it's just a consideration. I don't know. It was.
Oh.
Was it? Yeah.
It's already off topic.
Okay.
So, I wanted to ask a more, like in your function as a former general, you were in Afghanistan 4 times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 or 5.
I think in 2020.
And I'm not an Afghan. If it was for the Soli, I would have been an Afghan.
I've noticed. It's not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the first, but it's not an identitarian question. This one. So you're very familiar, I think, with the military situation there. What went wrong with the American retreat in 2022? Why was it so chaotic?
Okay. I'll tell you from a military point of view. Controlling an area is not easy at all. If you want to control an area from a military point of view, you need forces. And those forces are defined by many factors. The population, the armies of the enemy, the geography of the ground, and whatever. If you don't have the forces, you cannot control the areas. So in 2008, 2009, that was the period when General McChrystal came to take the lead of ISAF and American forces in Afghanistan. He made a 60 days assessment. After the assessment, he went back to the United States. He spoke to Barack Obama, that was the president, and he told him, I need 40,000 more soldiers to win the war. It was a 3-slide presentation. What is the situation? What I need, and the last PowerPoint slide was, if not, we lose. Mr. Barack Obama, that was the president of the United States, told to the general, I'm not giving you 40,000 soldiers. I'm giving you only 20,000. If not, we lose. And we lost. Very simple. So it's not very simple, but it's a part of the problem. So if you want to control an area from a military point of view, you need a certain amount of forces, certain amount of staff, certain amount of weapons, and then you can control it. If not, it's very difficult to win, especially if it is not, dynamic war, but is a counterinsurgency kind of operations. First problem. Second problem, which is also the problem that we have in Europe right now. How much the public opinion is happy or is able to live with European soldiers dying in Afghanistan? Because that was one of the problems. So if we needed to fight for the victory, we would have had much more people dying, and the public opinion in Europe and the United States not accepting this factor. So this is another piece of consideration that you need to put in your puzzle. And at a certain moment, someone decided, okay, we need to stop this war. After 20 years, we have not succeeded in what we were looking for, and we are going to go back. And it was always Mr. Trump that decided that. And the problem was the timing. Because even in these sectors, politics are not compatible with techniques and strategies. So the politics want to close the problem in 6 months. But then the technicians in the ground tell you, I'm not able to go back with all the stuff I brought here in 6 months. It's not feasible. And the politicians answer, I don't care. 6 months, it's over. Okay, I will manage it. But how can I manage it? As a disaster. So I will leave everything there. I will leave the stuff. I will leave weapons. I will leave the techniques. I will leave the cars, the tanks, and whatever. And then I will go back, minimizing the criticity and whatever I can minimize. But many times the politicians are not accepting, the technical part of the maneuver. For them, it's more important the impression they give to their electorate than what is going on in Afghanistan. And now I reverse the questions, okay? It's just for your considerations. There is someone in Europe that want us to pay 800 billions of euro for buying weapons because we need to contrast and to fight against the threat of Russian invasion. Very good. Who's going to fight? Because the wars are not won by weapons. They are won by soldiers. So if at the same time I don't create soldiers to fight against the Russians, the weapons will be useless. If at the same time I don't grow up a society that believe that is the worth to die for his own country, I'm going to lose the war. That's the problem. So it's useless to buy weapons if I grow up a society that believe in friendship and in the being son of humanity if I have got a war at my doors. So that's why I don't believe that it's a good thing to spend 800 billions in weapons where we are not ready to have people going fighting for our nations. Okay? Sure.
My question is partially tied to what have you been saying, and it's more of maybe a personal question. But while I'm a scholar, I'm studying Flemish history, Flemish national movement, and for me it was really easy to see what is compelling about Flemish national movement, their history, that they come from a place of oppression by the Belgian Francophone state. They had to fight for language, autonomy, the education in Dutch. So for me, it's really easy to see how for very young and not very young people, it's not only about the family ties that connect the movement and contemporary life, but also a genuine passion about what Flanders is, what they defended in First World War, Second, and so on. So my question would be, I'm Italian as well. We have lots of Italians today. And I am from a generation, maybe the last generation, that used to sing in elementary school the national hymn.
Items.
The Canzone del Piave.
Yeah.
Which is a song from First World War. And I agree with you, it also comes from family education, because I'm not passionate about these things, even though my grand-grandfather was part of the committee that wrote the Italian Constitution. So he was he was a senator, but in my family, that wasn't a huge deal. So I didn't grow up being proud of this. So my question would be about pride. What are the content of Italian nationalism, for example? Because, well, I know a bit about Flemish nationalism, but what are the content of Italian nationalism nowadays? What do you think people going into, let's say, a nationalistic perspective about our country think about? What do they like about this? Because to me, speaking just vaguely about, I'm an historian and a cultural anthropologist. So speaking about Italian culture, it's difficult because it's difficult to be proud of something that in our countries is so variegated, that it's so different. So I would say, in your experience, also, for your job as a soldier, what were the content of this nationalism? Because to me, and I will conclude, I'm speaking too much, the old nationalism about Italian nation building, about Risorgimento, died in the trenches of the First World War. And what we have today is mostly in its aesthetic, and very often in the content is the nationalism that come from the 20s, come from the dictatorship, the fascist dictatorship. And I'm saying that is the only nationalism in our country, but I feel, looking around, it's the main one. So, yeah.
So, I wouldn't talk about nationalism, I would talk about identitarism, okay? To find, the proudness of being of an identity. And as Italians, we have a lot of reasons to be proud. Starting with the Roman Empire, until nowadays, un popolo di navigatori, poeti, e tutto, okay, santi, so people of explorers, saints, and whatever, engineers, historians, whatever. So we had an history, plenty of characters and occasions to be proud of. But the identitarism is like many other characteristics. You don't born with. It's not something that you have because you train it. And if you don't train it, you don't have it. So if we started since the school not to sing our anthem, not to be proud of our flag, not to teach what were our heroes, and not to teach what heroism is, we cannot have people that is proud of his origins. So we came out that to be an hero right now, you need to be a victim. Just think about the name of the street that was given to the street in the last 40 years, only to victims. But victims are not heroes. From the definition of heroism, hero is someone who is enterprising something. Is not something that is, being subject to something as a victim is. So in Italy, to be an hero, you need to be victim of the war, victim of the street, victim of an assault, victim of whatever. You have the so-called victimism. And if you don't teach the young people to be proud of what they are, of what the history has been, of what their parents have done, of what is representing the proper nation, you cannot just have it. It's very simple. You need to train it. And we have a lot of examples. Not only in the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 80 years. We have since, 753 before Jesus Christ. And we can teach them a lot of things. The problem that we are learning other things in the schools. I have 2 daughters. They are learning Malian poets. I wonder why. We have so many poets in Italy. Why should they learn Malian poets? Why shouldn't we learn again, our own history, our own literature, our own proudness, and we should probably learn about other cultures' poetry when we should be proud of it? So it's a problem of building a society that is proud of its own identity. Just train it, and you'll have it. But if you don't train it, you're going to have it.
Maybe we can continue for 1 or 2 more questions, and then it will be around 9 o'clock, and then we can finish off.
Sure. Yes, sir. Please.
Yeah. Talking about the history and facts, is there no signs that there is a common ground in Europe? Because we are the continent of the ideas.
Yeah.
So we have developed during all these centuries, I think so, a common ground here in Europe.
Yeah.
Because I am of Flemish origin, but I have lived many years in Greece. And I feel European.
Yeah.
But I am also proud being Flemish.
Yeah.
So I don't think there is any antithesis between these 2 components.
Yeah.
On the contrary.
Yeah.
But I don't know how this.
No, I agree with you. So we describe Europe as the land that have Greek, Roman, and Christian origins, which is true by 90%. Because you are Flemish, you had some Roman traditions here, probably, but if you go to Finland, it is not Roman at all, because the Romans have never been to Finland. So that's why I was saying that we have some common ground, especially in the way of thinking, because it comes all from the Greek philosopher and whatever, but we have also very many differences. And that's why I was mentioning the religion as unique part that unifying us. But I agree with you in a major way thinking, yeah.
But when I see, so I lived many years in Greece, the religion is very important there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
When I came back here, it was for me, as a Flemish, it was a cultural shock.
Yeah.
Because it's very secularized here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Religion is no important element here. It's more the common ideas, brought by the Enlightenment that are here the common ground between all these people. So that's my problem. I share with the idea being European, but also being different from other Europeans.
Sure. Sure.
So I find this a very rich element.
Yeah.
Not to avoid or to see it as a threat.
No, no. I agree with you.
I like to see how see you, for example, European integration. If we have that common European ground, is it not important to seek elements between all these European people?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. We are similar. We are not the same. We need to be proud of the differences. Because Europe has an history totally different from each state to the other, I think that the European Union, the best way for the European Union to integrate the states is to, minimize the obstacles for the collaboration. It's not imposing directive and regulation as it is doing right now, but it's just to avoiding the obstacles from an economical, financial, military, or cultural point of view. And then to leave the sovereign state the possibility to cooperate when they have convergent objective to reach. That's the best way to recreate a European Union, more on the model of the European community that was conceived as a common ground where the single state could cooperate without any obstacle. Because we are different. We are nothing to see with the United States of America. So when we make examples, they made the United States of America, we can make the United States of Europe, is totally wrong. It's comparing two things that are not comparable. That's my opinion. That's why we are fighting in the European Union. Because even in this situation we are now, I perfectly understand a Polish or a Lithuanian or probably, I don't know, a Romanian that feel the fears of Russia. But a Portuguese will never feel the fear of Russia. So my way of thinking is leave this country that have this specific fear and threat, work together, but do not impose to the other to do the same thing. The Mediterranean country have other priorities. So they should work for other priorities. And they should have a common ground where the collaboration is eased, is facilitated. That's the way I see the European Union. The Europe of sovereign states, not the Europe that is oppressing the sovereign states. Please. You are getting tired. I understand you. Sorry for that.
Thank you for your lecture. I've heard, I don't know if it's just a rumor or if it's true, that some of the migrants getting imported into Europe are, the importation is getting facilitated by some of elements in the Italian mafia, and that some corrupt mayors.
Could be possible. Could be possible. Yeah.
Do you think there's any truth to that?
Well, we had a mayor that was condemned for that. His name is Mimo Lucano. He's also a parliamentarian in the European Union. He got 1 year and 6 months of jail because of that, for facilitating the migrants. That's true. So I cannot say this is not true. So this is a fact. It's not objectable. But we have lots of other entities that are facilitating the migration. The ONG, for example, is something that is facilitating the migration of people. And there is another factor that we need to understand, in my opinion. That is, it was communicated in a false way. So what has been said in the last decades is that we have the duty of accepting the migrants. Just think about the name, migrants. it's a neologism. If you go 40 years ago, the name migrants was not existing. 40 years ago, there were immigrants or emigrants. But then someone invented the name migrants. And this goes together with the ideology that wants to erase nations, borders, peoples, identities. If I am a migrant, I don't belong to any geographical area. I just move every time. And I stop only when I find a favorable condition for myself. When this favorable condition is not realized anymore, I continue moving. I'm a migrant. I don't have my country. I am the son of humanity. I am the son of the earth, of the planet. I don't need a nation. I don't need a people. I don't need a sovereignty. I'm a migrant. So nobody is part of a nation, is part of a people. We are all migrants. That's why this neologism has been made, because there was a strategy to let people believe that nations were not existing anymore, that there were something wrong that we needed to overtake. Okay? So the problem is this one, that we were convinced that we had a duty of accepting someone. But it's not true. It's not written anywhere that we have this duty. If you go in the chart of the universal chart of the human rights, and you go to Article 13, is the article of for the freedom of movement. I don't remember it by heart, but it says that every human being has the freedom of movement inside his own nation. So, this article states that everyone in this planet have a proper nation. We are not son of the humanity. We are not son of the planets. 8 billion of people living in this planet, each one of these 8 billion of people have a proper nation. And after, the Article 13 says that any human being has the right to leave his own nation. Very good. So I can leave my country whenever I want. But it doesn't state that the state that is neighbor to his state has the duty to accept it. And it states another thing, that any human being has the right to go back to his nation whenever he wants. So when we are supporting the remigration, we are promoting the universal chart of human rights, because anyone has the right to go back to his country. And any one of us has his own country. Did I answer your question?
Oh, yes. Could you, later on I will ask you the name of the person you said, I'm curious.
Mimmo Lucano, Domenico Lucano. You can Google it.
Okay, Mr. Student, maybe I'll do the exit speech in English, since we have a very multicultural audience today. Maybe the next event with Roberto we can do in Italian.
Okay, it would be simpler for me.
We have thank you for speaking for us, really. It was a very interesting talk. I think you had a lot of talking points that the people of KVHV can resonate with. We have this present for you, of course.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No problem.
Can I open it?
I
want to show it, yeah?
Ja. Schak, ik hoop dat het een goede foto van die mensen. Ja. Dus we gaan...
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Commilitones, we gaan nog eentje drinken in ons clubcafé de Salamander. En dan staat er in het kopschip ook nog wel een 3/4 vat op ons te wachten.